There was a serious problem between me and Richard. Constant arguments, silent treatments. We were both exhausted. And that's when I found out I was pregnant. I took the test results to him. He handed me divorce papers. 1. Richard said, "Let's get a divorce." I tightened my grip on the pregnancy report. I looked at him. He was someone I knew like the back of my hand. But his expression was cold and distant, completely shutting me out. "Why?" I asked. A lonely, sarcastic smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Casually, he said, "I'm tired. Fed up. Bored. We haven't been intimate in over 6 months. Don't tell me you haven't noticed." I stared at him, stunned. It was like something suddenly came to Richard's mind. He turned his head awkwardly, crushing the cigarette between his fingers. He muttered, "That last time was an accident." I felt confused for a moment. Then it clicked. He must have meant that night in the middle of last month. He came home drunk from a business dinner, clung to me, calling me baby. One thing led to another, and we ended up in bed. For a married couple, that wasn't just normal, it was expected. But to Richard, it now seemed like something shameful. If him saying he was tired and fed up felt like a slap to the face, then that explanation felt like a knife through the heart. The paper in my hand crumpled. I slipped it back into my bag. I said, "Okay." Richard was caught off guard, completely speechless for a moment. He had probably prepared a whole list of reasons, but I never gave him the chance to use them. That left him looking frustrated, like he didn't know where to put all that energy. But I wasn't pleased by that. I thought to myself, what made him think I'd cling to him like a fool? Even if my hands were shaking a little. He said, "All right then, here's the divorce agreement. Take a look. I've already divided the assets. If you're not happy with it, we can adjust it. The house is yours too." I took the contract and read it carefully. In terms of the division of property, I could only describe it as generous and fair. And this wasn't the kind of agreement you could draft in a day. He had been planning this for a while. I asked, "When did you start preparing this?" Richard sounded impatient. "Does it even matter?" No, it didn't. I just wanted to know if that candlelit dinner I carefully prepared for him 2 days ago was completely pointless. We'd been in a cold war for over a week. It started because I tried to kiss him on the cheek before work, and he pushed me away. He said, "We've been married too long for all that clingy stuff." Too long? Not exactly. But it had been a solid 7 years. The 7-year itch, I guess. His reaction pushed our relationship into a deep freeze. We both silently agreed to stop talking. I don't know how he felt. But I was miserable. I started wondering if I was being too sensitive, overreacting. So I made dinner, called him, and asked him to come home early. He did. We had an awkward meal together. On the surface, it looked like we'd made peace. But deep down, I knew that invisible wall between us was just getting thicker. So yes, asking him now was pretty meaningless. I picked up the pen on the table and signed my name at the end of the document. "I don't want the house," I said after checking the time. "It's 10 in the morning now. I'll have someone come by this afternoon to pack up my things." Richard frowned. "Why don't you want the house?" I looked around. The interior design was all my idea, done to match my tastes. Richard had overseen the renovations himself, trying to make it perfect with no flaws. This house was something we built together. Stay here after the divorce? I'd only be making myself miserable. I gave him a smile. Tired, fed up, just want a fresh start somewhere new. I could see his face darken instantly. He clenched his jaw. "Whatever. Do what you want." I nodded. "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. bring your ID, household registration, and marriage certificate. See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau." "You're really that eager?" I sighed internally. Richard had the upper hand in the beginning, he was completely in control. Now, though, he was starting to lose it. And me? I knew exactly where to strike. You bringing up divorce now is actually doing me a favor. I'm only 29. I can still start over. I heard women like me are pretty popular on the market. I raised an eyebrow at him. Time's not on my side. I'd better hurry up and find my second chance at love. Richard glared at me, breathing heavily. Ivy, don't push it. We're still legally married. Countdown, 22 hours, I replied calmly. You're not backing out, are you? His eyes were blazing. 21 hours and 47 minutes. If I back out, I'm a damn coward. Satisfied, I turned to walk away. Wait. Richard called out. You said you had something to tell me earlier. What was it? My hand instinctively pressed against my bag. Nothing. It's nothing now. 2. Back at the studio, I asked my assistant Rita to take some people and help me pack up. She's been by my side for years, she knows my lifestyle and that house better than anyone. She looked at me in shock. Sis, what happened? I didn't plan to hide it from her. I got divorced. Rita was stunned at first, then furious. Richard's such a jerk. I'll clean up everything, won't leave behind even a scrap of fabric for him. With that, she stormed off in anger. I stared blankly at her retreating figure. Rita's been with me for 8 years, longer than my marriage. So she witnessed everything between me and Richard. She saw the sweet beginnings. And she saw the love fade away. She used to look at me with envy and say, Sis, you've made me believe in love again. Sis, I'm going to find someone who loves me as much as Richard loves you. Sis, you're so lucky. But now, I think Richard and I must have shattered her illusions about love and marriage. How terrible of us. I pulled out the pregnancy test results from my bag. This baby really couldn't have come at a worse time. Richard and I were married for 7 years. At first, we weren't ready to be parents, so we used protection. But in the past 2 years, with our age creeping up and both sides of the family pressuring us, we finally decided to try for a baby. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. That's also when cracks started to appear in our relationship. We were intimate less and less. Like Richard said, aside from that one time, we really hadn't been together for over half a year. Who would have thought, just that one time, and it happened. But the timing couldn't be worse. So, it's best to deal with it early. After giving a few instructions to the team, I drove straight to the hospital. I planned to schedule the procedure for the day after tomorrow. But the doctor told me the embryo was still too small, only 0.3 centimeters, so I needed to come back in a week. A week later, I touched my lower belly, my mood sinking. I sat in the car, emotionless. I hate waiting. Especially waiting for a life to grow, just so I can end it. It's insane. A tiny life growing inside me. And I'm supposed to wait for it to grow, only to take it away. Just then, Rita called. Sis, what should I do with the wedding photos at the house? Wedding photos? My expression turned even colder. Trash belongs in the trash heap. Rita sounded energized. Got it. Understood. Later, she told me that while they were throwing out the wedding photos, Richard came home. When he saw them tossing the photos, his face turned green. He demanded to know what was going on. Then Rita passed along my message. Sis, you should have seen his face after I said that. Ugh, he looked like he got smacked with a rainbow of darkness. And then he grabbed some scissors and shredded all the photos. Richard's been ruthless, but I feel like he was in a really bad mood. Sis, do you think he regrets it? I let out a cold laugh. Regret? No way. He's just got a bruised ego. Alright, back to work. Don't bring him up again. Okay. 3. I'd planned for everything, except for Richard ghosting me. Not only did he not show up, but he also ignored my calls. I sneered. Some things never change. I went straight to his company. The receptionist respectfully let me through, but his secretary stopped me. She was attractive in a delicate kind of way, pretty, not seductive. And I'd seen her before. Just over a month ago, she helped a drunk Richard get home. Richard had his arm around her shoulder, she held his waist, they looked practically glued together. And as if afraid I hadn't noticed, she even pointed at the lipstick mark on Richard's collar and said, "Sis, Richard drank too much and was grabbing a little too hard. I accidentally left a lipstick mark, please don't be mad." Men with a bit of status can be dangerous when let loose. I've seen plenty of tricks over the years. Hers? Amateur stuff. So I said to her, "This isn't when you should be talking. You should look like you want to speak but don't, act all shy and guilty, eyes darting around, make me wonder, make me suspicious. That's how pros stir the pot. Got it?" She actually did start darting her eyes and then ran off. But clearly, I didn't teach her a hard enough lesson. "Miss Ivy, Richard's in a meeting. If you need anything, you can schedule an appointment." I scoffed. "Did you prepare the divorce papers?" A flash of excitement flickered in her eyes. Before she could respond, I said, "Sweetheart, trying to show off in front of me is a terrible idea. Maybe you don't know, I own shares in this company. Not just Richard's office, even your job, I have a say in it." She looked stunned. "What's all this noise?" Richard suddenly appeared, voice annoyed. His secretary lit up like she'd seen her savior. "Richard, I was just doing my job, but Miss Ivy threatened to fire me." Richard didn't even glance at her. He looked at me. "Why are you here?" "Oh please, drop the tough guy act." I tapped my watch. "Time's up." "What, you want to be my grandkid now?" Richard's face turned black. "I had a meeting this morning. I forgot." "Fine, I'll give you this one. We still have time. Let's go. I've got something after this." I cut him off. "Cancel it." He stared at me. I looked straight back, calm. "Richard, I'm not joking around. You're busy, I'm busy, too. You've already wasted an hour of my time." Richard let out a cold laugh. "Fine. Let's go." We arrived at the civil affairs office one after the other. I had Rita help me get a number while waiting. By the time we got there, only 2 people were ahead of us. "Sis, I'll take off now." I nodded and sat down. Richard let out a cold snort. "You're well prepared." "What, been planning this for a while. If you wanted a divorce so badly, you should have said so." "I wouldn't have." "Richard." I cut him off. "What's with the passive-aggressive tone? Why are you so upset? Don't tell me you're having second thoughts." "Of course not." He stood up suddenly, like I stepped on his tail. He said, "I'd never regret it. I'm going out for a smoke." And off he went in a hurry. For the next half hour, we didn't speak at all. We sat apart, stone-faced, finally looking like a couple getting divorced. The process was quick. 10 minutes later, we had our divorce certificate. As we left, Richard said, "Want to grab a bite? Breakup meal?" "If that's what you want to call it, sure." I smiled faintly. "No need. I have plans." "With who?" His voice was low and serious. "Not your concern." I got in my car and drove off. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Richard still standing there. Even after I turned the corner, he hadn't moved. "Richard, don't you dare regret this. If you try to play that 'you only cherish what you lost' game, it'll only insult everything we ever had." 4. Richard and I went to the same university. The way we met was pretty dramatic. I had just turned 18 and gotten my driver's license. I was showing off in my dad's car around campus. But my driving skills were terrible, and I just couldn't manage to park in reverse. I got flustered, turned the steering wheel too hard and hit the gas, only to end up crashing into Richard, who was standing behind me watching the show. He had been enjoying the sight of me fumbling around, never expecting to get knocked into the bushes. I had no choice but to take responsibility and care for him. That care lasted for 2 whole weeks. He was high maintenance, picky, and full of complaints. Those 2 weeks felt like absolute torture. So the moment he recovered, I ran off without looking back. But strangely, that's when he started chasing me. Because of those miserable 2 weeks, it took him half a year to win me over. He really regretted it. He said, "I teased you because I liked you." How is that torture? I was speechless. What kind of logic is that? Liking someone means making them cry. That's playground behavior. And as time went on, Richard continued to prove that his logic really was like a kid's. He was impulsive, immature, never thought things through. He just did whatever he wanted. But being with him was fun. Because he always brought so much passion and energy. The only problem is, no relationship can stay at a constant boil. When things cooled down, all that was left was plain, flavorless water. 5. How much did the divorce affect me? To people around me, probably close to 0. I still laughed, talked, worked as usual. I seemed totally fine. But I knew I was just using work to numb myself. So I wouldn't think. Wouldn't think about Richard. Wouldn't think about the child. But Richard kept showing up, and even got into a fight with my client. All because my client helped steady me when I almost tripped. What do you think you're doing? Who told you to touch her? I saw a blur rush past me, and the next thing I knew, the man who had caught me was sent flying. Richard tackled him and started throwing punches. I snapped out of it and rushed to pull him off. "Richard! Stop it! Are you out of your mind?" He turned and glared at me. "You're defending him? Seriously? What is wrong with you? He's my client." "Client?" His hand was on your waist. "Since when did you start using your looks to get clients? Get out, Richard." I swung my bag at his back. "You're insane. Can't you tell right from wrong?" He raised an arm to block me and shoved me away. I stumbled backward until I hit a pillar. A sharp pain shot through my spine. Then came a dull cramp in my abdomen. I slowly collapsed to the floor, my vision going fuzzy. "Ivy? Ivy, what's wrong? You're so pale. You're bleeding. Are you hurt? I just gave you a light push. Where did you hit yourself? Ivy, don't scare me. Say something." I woke up in a hospital bed. The first person I saw was Richard. His expression was complicated. He asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what?" "About the baby. Is that what you wanted to say last time? Why didn't you just tell me? If you had." I pulled my hand away from his. "There's no if. We're already divorced. And I never planned on keeping the baby." Richard jumped up. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean I'm getting an abortion." He looked at me in disbelief. "You can't just decide that on your own. It's our baby." "No," he added, "you haven't done the procedure yet. That means you were planning to keep it, right? You're just mad at me." I gave him a cold smile. "You're overthinking. The embryo's still too small for the procedure. Ask the doctor if you don't believe me." Richard looked shaken, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Why?" I looked him in the eye. "Why what? It's just an embryo. Why are you making this a big deal?" He was breathing heavily. "Just an embryo? It's our child." I turned my head away, frustrated. "Leave. We're divorced. My decisions have nothing to do with you anymore." "What do you mean they have nothing to do with me? You think you got pregnant on your own?" I gave a short laugh. "It was an accident. And accidents shouldn't be kept. I won't allow it." Richard shouted. "That's our baby. You don't have the right to decide this alone." I didn't know if it was the hormones or Richard's shouting, but I felt a storm of fury inside me. I tried hard to stay calm and not lose control. But Richard just wouldn't stop. He said, "Ivy, let's get back together." Boom. That one sentence pushed me over the edge. "Get out, Richard. Just get out." He stared at me in shock. He raised a hand, then slowly lowered it. Finally, he said, "Okay. I'll go. Don't be angry." I collapsed back onto the hospital bed. That's when I realized I was crying. "Doctor, can I do the procedure now?" "Yes." "Okay. Please schedule it as soon as possible." 6. The procedure was scheduled for the next afternoon. I didn't tell anyone. It was just a minor procedure. But Richard showed up again. He asked, "What will it take for you to keep the baby?" I turned away and closed my eyes. I didn't want to argue with him anymore. "I know I was wrong, okay? Can we stop fighting and just move forward? Please? Ivy, we've been together for 11 years. Now we even have a child. Are you really just going to throw it all away?" "Richard," I cut him off. "Let's just stop this game of, if this role doesn't work, we'll switch to another one. I'm tired." He stared blankly. "What are you talking about?" "There's a joke online I used to find funny. It goes, never make a woman cry. The tears are just her brain draining the nonsense out. Once her brain is clear, she's not so easy to deal with anymore." I used to laugh at that. What, are women all ruled by emotions? I didn't believe it. But later, I realized, maybe it's true. When you're caught in something, you can't see clearly. Once you step out of it, everything becomes crystal clear. "Do you remember what happened before we got married, Richard? Why did you even marry me?" 7. Richard and I got married not long after graduating from university. He brought it up, and I agreed. But to be honest, our relationship had already started to show cracks even before the wedding. People say graduation season is also breakup season. Once you step into the real world, with new circles and experiences, love becomes unpredictable. We were no exception. At that time, Richard had just started a business with some friends. Meanwhile, I was still on campus, preparing for grad school while working part-time as a designer. We rented an apartment near the university. In the beginning, he made an effort to come home every day. But gradually, that turned into once a week. One day, we had agreed that he would come back. I even prepared a full table of delicious dishes. But that afternoon, he suddenly called to say something had come up and he couldn't make it. I was pretty disappointed. Usually, I'd understand and tell him it was okay if he didn't come. But that time felt different. I was unusually upset. I told him, "No, you have to come back." Richard was quiet for a while, then replied with just one word, "Okay." He didn't argue, didn't fight me on it, he sounded perfectly normal. But the next morning, things changed. We were still asleep when his phone suddenly rang. I instinctively picked it up, turned on the speaker, and held it to his ear. Then I heard a woman's voice. She said, "Hey babe, you tore my black stockings, are you going to replace them or not? You're not trying to ghost me, are you?" Richard immediately shot up in bed and tried to grab his phone. But I was faster. I stared coldly at the screen and replied, "He probably won't replace them. But give your address to me and I'll make sure you get so many you'll never run out for the rest of your life." The call ended instantly. Richard tried to explain, it was just some girl from KTV. People like her talk nonsense, you don't need to take it seriously. Oh really? If she's that kind of person, then why are you still in contact with her? Richard looked annoyed. It was that one time I told you about, I went with a client, and gave out my number. Look, I didn't even save her name. If she calls, what am I supposed to do? But he got caught red-handed. I checked his call history. Just before he had called me to say he wouldn't be coming home, he had answered her call, then called her back a minute later. "What's this about?" I asked. After a moment, he admitted, "She asked me out to dinner yesterday. But I didn't go in the end, right?" I laughed bitterly. "You didn't go? Or I made you not go? If I hadn't insisted, were you planning to go, buy her another pair of stockings, and tear those too? Richard, if you really weren't giving her any signals, why would she even try to get close to you? You said she meant nothing to you, so why are you still talking to her? I really don't like this side of you." At the time, I was like a lot of girls. I thought my boyfriend didn't realize his behavior was hurtful. So I tried to explain it to him, hoping he'd change. But I forgot, we all went through the same basic education. No one's actually clueless. Richard snapped, Fine, I get it. I won't talk to her anymore." But did he really stop? I checked again a few weeks later. 3 calls, in less than 20 days. All in the middle of the night. We had another huge fight. In a moment of frustration, Richard blurted out, "Let's break up." And then he immediately regretted it. He hugged me and apologized, saying the girl just saved him a spot. He swore he'd never talk to her again and blocked her number. Even then, I still believed he wouldn't actually cross a line. He just didn't realize how much damage he was doing. After that, he proposed. We ended our boyfriend-girlfriend relationship and started a new journey as husband and wife. 8. Richard. I asked him, back then, did you really not know what you were doing? Or were you just chasing something new? Richard. Did you truly want to marry me, or was it that our relationship had run out of steam and you wanted a change, just a new identity to try? 3.5 years of dating, when the excitement faded, you couldn't handle it. So we got married, hoping a new title would reignite the spark. In the beginning, we were really happy. We'd wake up together, I'd make breakfast, he'd grind soybeans. Then we'd head to work, he always drove me to my office first. I told him I could drive myself. He said, "If even this needs my wife to do it, what use am I as a husband?" He always kept me in the loop, discussed everything with me. He'd even brag, "Another woman asked for my number today, but I turned her down right away. Aren't I a good boy, honey?" After work, he'd arrive at my studio 30 minutes early, holding a bouquet of roses. He said, "Whatever others have, Ivy should have double." Every week, he picked a day just for us. We'd go to the movies or go camping, he planned everything out. He said, "All Ivy has to do is enjoy herself." He rarely went to social events unless he absolutely had to. He liked being home with me, cooking, reading, tidying up. He'd say, "Being married is great. Having a wife is such a blessing." Every year, we'd travel together, exploring new places, seeing new sights. He said, "I want to take you around the world, until we're old and gray and can't walk anymore." It felt like we were back in our honeymoon phase. Everything was perfect. He burned so brightly, it felt like even breathing around him was warm. But no matter how big the flame, it eventually burns out. And once it's gone, all that's left is ash. 9. But Richard, how long did your passion last? Just 3 years. 3 years later, the fire began to fade. Our marriage returned to a calm, quiet routine. At first, I didn't think much of it. It felt normal. After all, real life isn't a romance drama. Eventually, everything comes down to daily life, cooking, bills, chores. That's just how marriage is. We spent the next 2 years peacefully. Then, everything suddenly started to fall apart. We hit rock bottom. 10. After the divorce, I finally started reflecting on my past with Richard. I picked everything apart, analyzed every detail. And eventually, I saw the full picture clearly. When did our marriage start falling apart? I think it was when we stopped desiring each other. It happened on an ordinary night. We were lying in bed, getting ready to sleep, when Richard suddenly leaned over and started kissing me. It was a familiar routine, We both knew exactly what would happen next. But then, out of nowhere, he stopped. He propped himself up, stared at me for a few seconds, then rolled off. He said, "Go to sleep. I just remembered I have some work to finish." We'd been together for so long that I was no longer sensitive to his emotional shifts. I didn't think much of it and went to sleep on my own. He didn't come back to bed that night, slept in the study instead. The next morning, he left on a business trip that lasted half a month. When he came back, he threw himself into work like a machine, almost obsessively. By the time I realized what was happening, our relationship had already turned ice cold. If we can't keep the relationship going, you want to get married. When the marriage doesn't work out, now you want a divorce. And now, I looked at Richard. Now that there's a child, do you think we can keep this going by being parents? But Richard, I don't want that anymore. I said a lot to him. I thought maybe if I laid everything out, he would understand. But it was like he was trapped in his own world. With tears in his eyes, he said, "I won't let you." He stubbornly refused to let me go through with the procedure. He made a scene at the hospital, even got into a fight with security. They were about to call the police. Watching the chaos unfold, seeing how out of control Richard had become, I finally nodded and cancelled the appointment. He smiled in relief, as if a huge weight had been lifted. At that moment, I didn't understand him anymore. What was he clinging to? 11. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. During those 3 days, Richard didn't leave my side. It was as if he believed the second he looked away, I'd go through with it behind his back. We didn't talk much during that time. Whether you're dating or married, there are some things better left unspoken. Words can hurt, and once you say too much, there's no taking it back. I had already said everything. It was like tearing off all the masks, stripping away the pretty facade. All that remained was raw and bloody truth, mutual damage with no winners. When I was discharged, Richard asked, "Where are you going?" I said, "Back to the studio." He frowned. "You need rest." I looked at him expressionlessly. "Richard, I never agreed to keep the baby." As soon as I saw his emotions start to spike again, I cut him off. I was tired of dealing with his outbursts, his behavior. So I said, "If you won't drive me, I'll just take a cab." Eventually, he gave in. Back then, Richard had gotten into an altercation with one of my clients, which left a bad impression and hurt my studio's reputation. I had to get Rita to smooth things over, offering an apology, compensation, and even a free design service, just to keep the client from reporting him. The client made one condition: I had to handle the design personally. I agreed. He'd been following up constantly over the past few days, which is why I delayed the procedure. The doctor had told me that the ideal time frame was between 7 and 8 weeks, and that the choice was up to me. My gaze fell quietly on Richard. Yesterday, he asked me, "Ivy, do you really hate me that much?" I didn't answer. Because between us, it's not even about hate anymore, it's not that extreme. It's just, we don't know how to keep going anymore. Or to put it simply, we're just not right for each other. Richard glanced at me through the rearview mirror. The moment our eyes met, I slowly looked away. 12. After a week of hard work, I finally satisfied the client. During that week, Richard practically moved into my studio like he had no job. Everyone except Rita was a little envious. Rita couldn't stand him. She complained to me, "Men are so ridiculous. They don't appreciate what they have until they lose it." And now look at him, regret written all over his face. She warned me, "Please don't forgive him too easily." I paused. "You think I'd take him back?" Rita nodded. "You and Richard don't have any major issues, there's no cheating, no violence, nothing unforgivable. The divorce was impulsive. Getting back together, isn't that just a matter of time?" Her words made me fall silent. Faced with Richard and all the years we shared, I do sometimes feel uncertain. Am I being too stubborn? He apologized. He didn't actually do anything that crossed a line. And now there's a baby involved. Should I take the off-ramp and just let things go? I didn't know. So I made a decision to give it one last try. 13. I signed us up for a new parents' workshop and brought Richard along. There were many others attending, some women with big baby bumps, some just starting to show, and others like me with no visible signs yet. At first, the instructor covered a lot of theory. Richard listened intently, while I watched him closely. I couldn't imagine what Richard would be like as a father. Just as I couldn't imagine myself as a mother. But the title, Father of Ivy's Child, seemed to belong only to Richard. Yet. Richard. Suddenly, I stood up. What's wrong? Richard asked. Nothing. Just need some fresh air. I'll come with you. I shook my head. You stay here. I'll be out for a bit. Outside, I spent half an hour lost in thought, though in truth, I barely thought of anything at all. My mind was a mess. When I went back inside, Richard was awkwardly standing there holding the baby. The sight was kind of funny. What are you doing? I asked. Burping him, Richard replied. The instructor explained, a baby's stomach is horizontal, so if you lay him down immediately after feeding, he might spit up or choke. Burping helps release the swallowed air. I had no idea about this. Every time after feeding? Yes. How often does the baby feed? The instructor said, newborns feed on demand, when they're hungry or when the mother's milk is full. Usually every 1 or 2 hours. As the baby grows, the feeding frequency decreases, but it varies. The instructor smiled. Some kids seem to come to repay kindness, some to take revenge. Theory is just theory. That whole afternoon, Richard learned how to hold the baby, dress him, change diapers, burp him, and give him a bath. When we left the workshop, he sighed deeply. Tired? I asked. He straightened up quickly, not at all. Looking at him, I said, raising a child is the one thing you can never quit halfway. From his first cry to first words, then first steps, and beyond, once it starts, it can't stop. Being a father isn't about passion, it's about responsibility and duty. Richard, are you really ready? He was about to answer, but I stopped him. No need to rush. Take your time to think. I needed to think carefully too. Richard continued to show up every day without fail. He prepared nutritious meals for me. Wherever I went, he accompanied me. Just like when we first got married. Rita teased me, sis, does this mean you'll be having a big celebration soon? But my heart was sinking slowly. Richard seemed distracted. No one else noticed, but I could see it clearly. He would zone out for seconds at a time, or glance at my belly with a heavy look. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking it. But then I accidentally saw his phone's search history. Is it harmful to the body to have an abortion after the ideal time? 14. Seeing that search didn't make me sad, rather, I felt relieved, like a weight was lifted. Richard avoided my gaze awkwardly. His hand holding the lunchbox was pale and weak. I took the lunchbox from him. This is the last time. Thank you. As I turned, Richard grabbed my hand. Is this the end for us? He looked at me with pain, like someone drowning. I've tried. I've been going to the workshop these days, forcing myself to accept it. But I can't. The thought of being tied down by a child forever feels like being stuck in quicksand. I struggle, but I can't break free. But Ivy, I love you. Let's not have the child. Let's start over, okay? I regret it. The moment you agreed to divorce, I regretted it. I don't want to hurt you, but I also don't want to lose you. What should I do? I listened quietly. I said nothing, just looked at him calmly. Richard stared back blankly, then slowly let go of my hand. Richard, goodbye. Does Richard still love me? Maybe, but probably more out of habit. And so do I. 11 years. I'm used to having him at home, behind me. Suddenly, it's just me. My mind and body feel empty. It hurts. But what else can I do? Just settle? No way. Changing habits is scary. But living the rest of life stuck in habits is scarier. I'm grateful to Richard. He helped me escape the maze and lose at an age I could afford to lose. I scheduled the surgery for the next day. Richard came with me. He said he wanted to be with me one last time. I agreed. Throughout the procedure, I stayed calm. But when I left the operating room, tears came anyway. Richard left silently, without a word. Rita cursed Richard for being cold and heartless. I knew he just didn't know how to face me. Rita asked, "Sis, don't you regret it?" I shook my head. No. No. I don't know. I closed my eyes, exhausted. When we were kids, we did many things that now seem embarrassing. We'd wonder why we acted that way. But looking back, did we do those things knowing we'd regret them? No. It was just that at the time, our life experience and maturity only allowed those choices. Now is the same. I can't promise I won't regret this later. But right now, this is what I need to do. As for everything else, leave it to fate. Extra chapter. After Ivy's miscarriage, Richard locked himself at home for half a month. His mother brought a locksmith to open the door and dragged him out from a pile of trash. What are you trying to do? Kill yourself by eating takeout? Richard felt deeply sad. He said he had lost Ivy forever and that the air around him felt suffocating. His mother sneered coldly. Do you know what you look like right now? Like a kid who can't get candy. Richard glared at her angrily. But she didn't even blink. Do you think this pain is all there is? This is nothing. Wait until Ivy starts a new relationship, then you'll know what the end of the world really feels like. Richard cried. Even he hadn't expected to be driven to tears by his mother's words. He wiped his tears awkwardly and growled, Ivy won't. His mother laughed mockingly. Ivy is much stronger than you. Sooner or later she'll move on from this failed relationship and start a new life. Is that so hard to understand? Richard couldn't accept it. He couldn't accept just hearing it. I want to find Ivy. His mother blocked his way. It's too late. Richard shook his head. No, if I treat her well, I can win her back. Ivy loves me. Yes, I'll chase her again, we'll start over. His mother looked at him with disappointment. Do you know that after a miscarriage, women need to rest during the postpartum period? Bed rest, careful diet, no heavy work. Some even need treatment to prevent infection. I heard her mother came to take care of her. When your father and I went to visit, they didn't even let us in, and threw out the supplements we brought. Richard's heart sank. I didn't know. What postpartum rest? How would he know? The doctor said it was just a minor procedure. Why would she need bed rest for so long? Of course you don't know, his mother snapped. You only care about your own feelings, whether you're happy or not. You want new things in your life, you can't sit still since you were a kid. Making you do something you don't want to do feels like killing you. Tell me, are you really sad because you lost Ivy? Or do you just feel sad because it's a new kind of pain you've never experienced? Pain is also a kind of thrill. No. Richard backed away quickly, grabbed a vase, and smashed it on the floor. How dare you say that about me? How dare you judge my feelings for Ivy? His mother sighed. Richard, you need to grow up first. You have to learn to take responsibility. Take it slow, after all, you're alone now, no wife, no kids. Growth? Responsibility? These words felt strange to Richard. He always thought happiness was the most important thing in life. There were many things that made Richard happy. Since he met Ivy, 90% of his happiness came from her. So why did Richard want a divorce? He had lost feelings for Ivy. Holding her hand felt like holding his own hand. Kissing her, hugging her, even his heart didn't race anymore. He even felt annoyed by her breathing when they slept together. He had a puppy as a child. At first, he liked it, but later he found it troublesome and gave it away. Ivy wasn't a puppy, he couldn't just say he didn't want her anymore. He had to pretend their love was still the same. It was suffocating. Richard felt irritated. He started flirting with others, some physical contact here and there. It was exciting. At least more interesting than staying at home. So Richard asked for a divorce. He was ready for how Ivy might cling to him if he did. But Ivy agreed immediately. At that moment, Richard's mind went blank. No, this isn't how it should go. Why did she agree without hesitation? Why no struggle? Just a week ago, Ivy was still trying to please him. Ivy loved him so much. Why did she agree to divorce so easily? Richard wished he could take back what he said. But Ivy didn't give him a chance to regret. Richard regretted it. He regretted it the moment he said it. He wanted to see Ivy. But he was afraid. He followed Ivy for 3 days. Every time she turned around, he hid, not even daring to face her. He drank every day. And cried after drinking. His friends said, "Forget it, Ivy obviously values her dignity more than you." He couldn't even save face, so why chase after an ex-wife? Richard thought they were right. So he gathered courage and ran into Ivy by chance. Ivy was surprised to see him. She smiled and said, "Long time no see." Her expression, her tone, as if they had never been together, as if they were just old friends meeting again after a long time. Richard couldn't stand it. He asked, "Can we start over?" Ivy shook her head. "I never knew that letting you go would make me feel this free. You didn't do anything wrong. Your decision to divorce was right." Hearing this, Richard felt a chill down his spine, his heart turned to ashes. Ivy started a new relationship 3 years after their divorce. When asked about marriage, Ivy smiled and said, "I no longer set expectations about how far this will go. I'll just go with the flow." Richard sneered. He thought her new partner wasn't as good as himself. After all, Ivy once told him she was against marriage, but she changed her mind because of him. She wanted to get married, wanted to grow old with someone. Richard smiled and cried at the same time. He knew he was the one who killed the hopeful Ivy she once was. He didn't deserve forgiveness.